Greetings, friends. You are watching Ruslan Belov Reports, and today we're covering the frontline situation in Ukraine as of November 9th, 2025. This day has brought a storm of events, perhaps the most dramatic since early autumn. Let's move directly to the frontline and begin with the Zaporizhzhia axis, where Russian forces continue their large-scale offensive. Since early morning, multiple reports and verified videos have shown the aftermath of the collapse of Uspennivka and Poltavka strongholds. These two fortified zones were considered the backbone of Ukrainian defense in the Gulyai-Pol direction, and both have now fallen. After their capture, the Russian army advanced into open terrain, meeting almost no organized resistance while pushing westward toward Gulyai-Pol itself. To put it bluntly, Uspennivka and Poltavka marked a crisis. The movement toward Gulyai-Pol is a catastrophe for the Ukrainian front. Several mapping services already reflect large adjustments between Novomykolaivka, Okhotnichye and Sladke, showing that Russian forces seized a wide belt of territory. Russian assault groups have entered the eastern outskirts of Sladka, while Ukrainian sources claimed a counterattack, though so far without visual proof. Footage released by channels affiliated with the Vostok grouping shows Russian storm units raising 4 flags in the village of Rybin, 1 in the southeast and 3 in the north, confirming the full liberation of that settlement. Artillery, FAB strikes, and FPV drone assaults preceded the final assault, reducing the Ukrainian defense network to ruins. This is now an operational breakthrough. From the eastern edge of Sladk to the Ukrainian lines around Gulyai-Pol, the remaining distance is 11 kilometers and 300 meters, effectively point-blank range for further strikes. The geography here is critical. The Russian army now threatens Gulyai-Pol from 3 axes, east, northeast and north, directions where Ukrainian defenses were least prepared. Weather conditions slow heavy movement, but the momentum clearly favors Moscow. With supply routes collapsing and command posts under constant drone observation, local Ukrainian units risk encirclement once the Russians reach the outskirts from Sladk and Novoe simultaneously. Moving northward, we reach the Pokrovsk front, another flashpoint of the day. Here, Russian assault brigades have intensified attacks toward Aristopol after securing Volchia village earlier this week. Combat reports indicate that Russian units are gradually advancing, attempting to clear the defensive line up to Velikomykhailivka, a key settlement on the Ukrainian side of the Volchia River. Should this area fall, the next logical targets will be Havrilivka from the south and east, and then Proziane, a transport hub on the railway linking Pokrovsk, Dnipro and Zaporizhzhia. Field footage from the Volchia sector shows destroyed bridges, once vital for Ukrainian logistics, now lying shattered, impossible to restore. Locals confirm that temporary pontoon crossings exist, but the terrain is swampy and narrow, making sustained resupply nearly impossible. Any repair attempt immediately draws Russian FPV or Lancet strikes. The logistical chain here is broken beyond repair. Further west, additional confirmation arrives from the Dnipropetrovsk direction. Russian forces expanded their control around Alexeyevka and Nekhayevka, cutting the road to Aristopol from the north. The entire area marked in red on updated maps now lies under Russian control, effectively choking Ukrainian supply to the entire Pokrovsk grouping. Ukrainian command still maintains small reserves near Sosnovka, but these are constantly targeted by glide bombs and reconnaissance drones. The Russians are now pressing from multiple sides across the Volchia River, a geographical barrier that now works against Kiev. Meanwhile, reports from Mala Tokmachka confirm continuous artillery and drone duels. Ukrainian forces attempt small-scale counterattacks using FPV swarms, yet fail to push the Russians back. Precision strikes hit Ukrainian positions in Novodanilovka and southern Orikhiv, where a Ukrainian artillery piece was destroyed. Footage of the explosion already circulates online. In summary, the Zaporizhzhia-Pokrovsk axis has reached a decisive phase. The fall of Uspennivka, Poltavka, and now Rybin signals the breakdown of an entire defensive chain. Ukrainian analysts acknowledge that once Gulyai-Pol comes under direct assault, the entire southern segment may unravel within weeks. Russian engineers are rapidly fortifying captured areas, building forward depots, and preparing the next phase, possibly a deep strike toward Pavlograd or even Dnipro. But perhaps the most dramatic news concerns Mirnohrad, just north of Pokrovsk. Multiple reports confirm that around 2,000 Ukrainian troops are trapped in a tightening pocket there. Russian forces have already advanced into the southern districts of the city, especially near industrial facilities, while glide bombs, including FAB-3000, hit Ukrainian command centers in the Molodizhny district. The northern sector of Mirnohrad is under heavy Russian pressure, and visual data shows active fighting near Ree Street and Schmidt Avenue. Should Mirnohrad fall, the road to Pokrovsk's full encirclement opens. Ukrainian attempts to evacuate through Hryshino are blocked, and Russian units are clearing basements and small groups left behind in Rodinska and Ro. With logistics collapsing and communication nodes destroyed, this region is turning into another major cauldron. For Kyiv's forces, it's becoming a question not of holding ground, but of survival. From the southern fronts, we now shift north, to the Seversk sector, where events of recent days suggest that Russian troops are entering the city itself. Updated combat maps show clear and significant changes compared to November 8th. Russian assault units have advanced through the defensive network east and south of Seversk, dismantling what once was a dense line of fortifications built since 2022. New footage released today shows Russian infantry clearing a massive Ukrainian strongpoint east of the city. Drone operators record the moment a Russian soldier throws a grenade directly into an entrenched position, a scene that confirms close-quarters combat inside what was once considered an impenetrable defensive ring. The fight for these outer trenches means one thing: the battle for Seversk has effectively begun. The geography here gives the advantage to Moscow's troops. Seversk lies in a low-lying valley divided by the Bakhmutka River, most of which now flows through Russian-controlled territory. With bridges destroyed and the city long reduced to rubble by aerial strikes, defending it is becoming nearly impossible. Ukrainian positions south of the railway are under continuous bombardment, and analysts predict that the remaining garrison will soon withdraw toward Rozdolivka or Sviatopokrovsk, both already under Russian fire control. South of Seversk, fierce battles continue between Dronivka and Platonivka. FPV duels dominate the area, both sides using hundreds of drones daily. However, Russian drone teams hold the upper hand, keeping every crossing and trench under surveillance. Fresh coordinates reveal that Russian forces have moved 700 to 800 meters forward from Dronivka's southern edge. Once Platonivka falls, the Ukrainian supply route to Seversk will be physically severed. In effect, Seversk will become a semi-encircled zone, a repeat of the Avdiivka scenario, but deeper and more isolated. Further north, the Kupiansk-Borova front remains one of the most pressured regions of the entire front line. Recent satellite geolocation and footage confirm that Russian forces have completed a major regrouping there, preparing for what could be the final phase of the Kupiansk cauldron. Reports from both sides mention that the Ukrainian command is trying to maintain at least one crossing over the Oskil River, but every bridge, every pontoon, comes under immediate Russian FPV and Lancet fire the moment it's repaired. The Kupiansk garrison, still numbering several thousand, is under full fire control. Ukrainian units attempting to break out face precision strikes from Russian aviation. Every repair, every resupply effort turns into a death trap. Local residents report constant detonations on the roads leading to Kivsharivka and Sinkivka. If this pattern continues, Kupiansk's complete encirclement could be declared within 10 days. Once Kupiansk is secured, attention will inevitably shift toward Borova, the next key junction leading west to Izium. Russian forces already conduct reconnaissance in force near Bohuslavka and across forested areas north of the river. Analysts believe Borova may become the next operational target once Kupiansk collapses, marking a strategic shift of momentum in Russia's favor across the entire Kharkiv-Luhansk axis. Meanwhile, in the Lyman direction, the situation remains relatively stable yet intense. Fighting continues north of Yampil, within dense forests that have become the theater of constant drone and artillery duels. Russian strikes have hit Ukrainian positions in Yarova, Novoselivka and Drobyshev, with unconfirmed reports of progress in northern Novoselivka. Ukrainian counterfire targeted Russian positions in the eastern part of Lyman, indicating that Russian units still hold the eastern bank despite repeated Ukrainian shelling. Footage shared via pro-Russian Telegram channels shows Russian crews destroying a Ukrainian BM-21 Grad and a Humvee in this sector, direct hits verified by drone footage. To the east, another front is slowly but steadily moving, the Veliki Burluk line between Kamenka, Bilogivka, and Dvorechny. Over the past 72 hours, Russian troops have systematically expanded control here, closing the gap between Kamenka and Bilogivka. Each day, a new pocket falls. First the southern edge 2 days ago, then the northern corridor yesterday, and now the final strip today, all marked red on updated maps. Ukrainian analysts admit that unless reinforcements arrive, the entire belt between Kholodny Yar and Dvorechny will soon be lost. Russian units are now preparing to storm Kholodny and Koduny, both lying just a few kilometers away. In Volchansk, no radical changes yet, but fighting remains brutal. Reports speak of Russian troops clearing the area up to the Rubezhny highway, effectively controlling all positions east of it. Ukrainian sources confirm heavy losses from FPV drone strikes in open fields near Sinelnikov and Volchansky Khutory. The city is being squeezed from both north and south, suggesting that the Russians are trying to replicate the Kupiansk encirclement pattern here as well. Along the Liptsy line, both sides engage in relentless drone skirmishes. Russian artillery hits Slobozhanska and Liptsy, while Ukrainian FPV operators target Russian positions in Hlybok and Lukyantsy. For months, this area has seen no clear frontline movement, but constant attrition wears down Kyiv's defenders. Finally, at the far northern edge, the Sumy direction remains tense. Despite the lack of territorial shifts, the daily battles here have become a war of exhaustion. Ukrainian artillery and drones attack Russian positions near Kondrativka, Andreyivka, and Malakochakivka, while Russian forces strike back at Vorozhba, Yablunivka, and Yunakivka. Particularly fierce clashes are reported east of Sadki, where both sides trade FPV hits over open fields and forest lines. This area may soon turn into a new active front once the Kupiansk sector stabilizes, connecting all northern operations into a single continuous offensive arc, stretching from the Oskil to the Dnipro. The pattern is clear. Step by step, the northern half of the front is compressing, folding inward towards central Ukraine. Russian troops now operate simultaneously from Sumy, Volchansk, Veliki Burluk, Lyman, and Seversk, forming a curved pressure belt. For Kyiv, it means growing vulnerability of supply hubs in Dnipro, Poltava, and Kramatorsk, all within reach of long-range glide bombs. As the November campaign unfolds, one truth becomes unavoidable. The Ukrainian front is overstretched, and its defensive coherence is eroding. From Guliai-Pol to Kupiansk, Russian forces have transformed localized pressure into systemic collapse. Every day brings confirmation that Kyiv's army is losing not only territory, but also its ability to maneuver, resupply, and rotate troops effectively. Satellite analysis over the last week shows a near-continuous chain of Russian offensives: Zaporizhzhia, Pokrovsk, Seversk, Kupiansk, and Veliki Burluk, all advancing in rhythm, leaving no pause for Ukrainian regrouping. The tempo is deliberate, methodical, and clearly coordinated. Western experts once described Russia's approach as slow but sure. Now they call it synchronized attrition, a grinding process designed not for quick breakthroughs, but for the destruction of the Ukrainian army as an organized force. Let's look at the logistics. Russian strikes have systematically dismantled Ukraine's internal transport grid. Bridges across the Volkhya and Oskil rivers are gone. Rail hubs at Pavlograd, Pokrovsk, and Lozova are under constant threat. Even emergency supply routes, patched together from rural roads, are within the kill zone of Russian FPV drones and Lancet systems. The Ukrainian Air Force, short on both aircraft and fuel, can no longer provide meaningful support to ground units. As a result, entire brigades are fighting isolated, without consistent ammunition flow or medical evacuation. On the opposite side, the Russian command now demonstrates an efficiency unseen in the earlier years of the operation. Drone reconnaissance, real-time artillery correction, and close coordination between ground and aerospace units Allow Russia to strike faster than Ukraine can react. The lessons of previous months, from Avdiivka, from Kupiansk, from Chasiv Yar, have been absorbed. What we're witnessing now is not random success, but a mature operational model. The human factor is equally important. Ukrainian reports of record desertions, over 20,000 in October alone, confirm the exhaustion of manpower. Mobilization laws tighten, yet morale continues to fall. Western volunteers, once paraded as symbols of unity, now quietly vanish from the battlefield. For many Ukrainian soldiers, the front no longer represents defense of the homeland. It represents a dead end. Meanwhile, Russian troops, after years of combat experience, operate with growing confidence. They fight close, adapt quickly, and exploit every Ukrainian weakness, psychological as well as tactical. Politically, Kyiv is running out of options. The West faces its own crisis: elections in the United States, political paralysis in Europe, and rising fatigue among taxpayers who no longer see a Ukrainian victory as possible. In Washington, arguments flare between factions demanding new aid and those calling to freeze the conflict. In Brussels, economic losses mount as sanctions backfire, energy prices climb, and industry falters. The unity that once seemed absolute is fracturing, slowly but visibly. And this is where Moscow's long game becomes evident. For years, Ukraine used its geographic position to blackmail Russia, blocking gas flows, demanding transit fees, acting as a political weapon for the West. But now the tables have turned. With each kilometer of advance, Moscow reclaims both strategic depth and leverage. Control over the Dnipro's left bank opens direct pressure on Ukraine's industrial heartland, and every strike near Dnipro or Pavlograd tightens that grip. Russia no longer reacts to events, it shapes them. Analysts in Western think tanks now debate a critical question. If Ukraine collapses militarily, will Russia still adhere to its original peace conditions? Withdrawal of Ukrainian forces beyond Russia's constitutional borders, demilitarization and neutrality? Or will Moscow, having paid so high a price and gained so much ground, raise its demands? The consensus among observers is clear. Those earlier terms are obsolete. The war's dynamics have outgrown the framework that once defined it. Meanwhile, on the ground, the reality is simple. In Gulyai Pol, Russian troops are 11 kilometers from the city center. In Pokrovsk, Mirnohrad's southern districts are already lost to Ukraine. In Seversk, street fighting has begun. In Kupiansk, every bridge lies under Russian fire. And on the Sumy border, the drones never stop buzzing. The front may appear fragmented on a map, but it functions as one unified machine, advancing, tightening, adapting. Step by step, Ukraine's fortified belt, that once stretched unbroken from Kherson to Kharkiv, is being erased. And yet, amid the statistics and footage, it's easy to forget the deeper meaning. Every explosion, every burning trench, every town reduced to rubble, all of it tells a story of two nations trapped in a war that might have been prevented, had diplomacy not been replaced by arrogance. History will judge who pushed the world toward this abyss, but one thing is already certain: the illusion of unipolar dominance is gone. The West can no longer dictate outcomes unchallenged. The balance, however fragile, however costly, is returning. Friends, this concludes today's report for November 9th, 2025. As always, Ruslan Belov Reports reminds you, we condemn any form of violence and call on all sides to seek peace and dialogue. But until that day comes, we will continue to document the reality as it is, honestly, directly, without filters. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, stay informed, and take care. See you in the next report.